Hello, David here. I just thought it would be useful if I explained the EVP materials that we've been working on over the last few weeks and just kind of positioned where everything sits and what everything's for, just so that when you receive the packet of content today, hopefully it makes a lot more sense. So in the packet, there's a description that talks about three things. It's a one-line internal tagline, it's a short employee value proposition, and it's a slightly longer form of narrative, which we call a descriptor, which basically explains both of those things in more detail. But there's these three things fit into a packet of other communications that are commonly confused and probably connected in the wrong way. So I just thought it'd be useful to just very briefly highlight the hierarchy. So when you're communicating this stuff to people, we should always start with the strategy at the top of the pyramid. Then we should look at the customer value proposition, which is your external facing, marketing focused sales document, frankly, that positions your business for the outside world. Then you have an EVP or an employee value proposition. And then finally, you'll have some kind of measurements, competency framework or KPI structure that you measure, track and reward people based upon. The key thing with that is to have, in your case, a red line from the strategy all the way through to competencies, but not to force or artificially squeeze in messages from each of them into the one below or the one above. When companies do that, it fails to resonate with people. It feels like it's corporate jargon and it doesn't really work. So what we've tried to do as best we can is talk to people, get their views, and make sure that the EVP, the tagline and the extended version absolutely reflect the words, the language and the sentiment that they shared with us in terms of aspiration, but also in terms of reality. So this isn't a sales document, it's one that when people hear, they should resonate with and say, that sounds like us. So what we have done is gone back and tried where possible to grab phrases from the externally facing CVP and put those into the EVP material. And that's just to make sure that the two are nicely tied together. But I think we've done as much as you would want us to do on that without over-egging it. So three things. The first thing is the statement or the tagline. That one you can read, but essentially the keywords we picked up and the key themes are around passion and voice. Red was one, and I know that has different connotations, but red meaning, us at Redbox, our culture. There were things around connection and growing, the future, fearless, and of course, togetherness and teamness. And what we've decided, I think, to go with based on feedback from the board and others is unlocking the value of voice together. We are Redbox, courageous, competitive, collaborative. And if you look at those key words there, which I've highlighted at the bottom, the unlocking is exactly what you do and you talk about in your external communications and CVP. The value of the voice is what you're giving people back. That exactly reflects your external messaging. So it's outcome focused and it's customer focused at the start. The we are Redbox, courageous, competitive and collaborative, that's the internal piece. And that's how we want to feel, that's how we want to work, and that's how we want to be. So I think those two things work together perfectly. External, internal, yin yang, whatever you might call it. So that I think is as good as it needs to be. The short EVP statement we've worked up a little bit since you saw it last. It's in your packet, and I'll just read it to you as it stands. There's three versions, but the format's quite important. So we say, for courageous, competitive and collaborative, to people with strong voices and a will to speak up and relentlessly innovate and seek smarter ways of working, who want to be part of an amazing journey, recognised as leaders in their field and at the cutting edge of a technology revolution, Redbox provides the opportunity to develop and grow fast. A supportive environment where we work together, learn from each other and thrive as a team in collaboration with our partners, customers and suppliers. And together we'll work with the world's highest profile brands, most critical public services. We'll be at the epicenter of a revolution in voice, ensuring we lead the way by capturing and securing and unlocking the power of more than 1 billion conversations a year. So that's the short version, and I won't read the rest, but we've then added a version of what this might feel like for you if you were logging onto the website for the first time and thinking about Redbox as a career choice. So we've got the is Redbox right for you version of an EVP, and then we've got a slightly more extended version which you can read as well. But in essence, it's meant to be relatively short, relatively punchy, and to give that emotion. The final stage is layer 3, which is the culture, which is expanded, and there's two or so pages of that, so I won't read it through. But I think the key thing in here is we've put back in there some of the messaging that we maybe took out just for neatness, but we've tidied that back up, and we talk about seamless and speedy, we talk about the connections, we talk about unlocking, we talk about securing, so we talk about all the key points that are in the external customer value proposition. And if Nadine and the guys give you a copy of that, you'll be able to see, as we've highlighted, each of the key messages. So this version in particular tells your story, but it also reflects the customer value proposition directly. So you've got 3 sections of the 3 tools, each are wired together, and there's a nice connection from the bottom all the way up to the strategy. The next step is critical, which is how do we engage people with that? And I know Nadine and the guys have plans. The key thing is to make sure people get a chance to get their hands on it, have a feel for this stuff, and start to think about what it means for them. And workshops seem to be the simplest way of doing that over a short period of time. So I hope that gives you a bit more positioning. I'm happy to answer questions in due course. Thanks.